ready to go. And we are back.
Hello, we are back. We are excited to be here today. Something I think we touch on a lot, Tiffany, is healthy relationships. We also talk a lot about trauma. So one of the things we've kind of had on our list, I want to say for a while, Tiffany, is to do healthy relationships maybe after experiencing a trauma. So I do just want to make sure I provide our trigger warning for today. We will be getting a little detailed about symptoms like hypervigilance, boundary settings, some challenges, like some just practical challenges people with trauma experience, like trying to have healthy relationships, and then a few exercises. But I just want to throw out that disclaimer if you're not looking for maybe those day-to-day situations, and you're maybe someone who's lived through some traumatic experiences and noticing them, maybe not the day to listen to this, but we'd love for you to listen another time or pause when you need to. But I just wanted to give that disclaimer, Tiffany, before we get started.
Yes, this could be a very potentially triggering episode, and I appreciate you always looking out for our viewers. Sometimes I forget.
No, it's a team effort. So one thing I just want to, like, as we're kicking off a little bit today, like I have experienced trauma in my life. And so I am someone who has recovered from trauma, gone through my own trauma therapy, my own EMDR therapy. So I want to say on this one, I can say I've been in some dark moments, some challenging moments, and also seen some of the healing that can come from that. So I just want to normalize this conversation today that like it shouldn't feel a stigma to say that versus sharing, oh, I had to go to the dentist or oh, I've had my wisdom teeth removed, you know. So I just really want to open that up that sometimes there's a struggle for survivors to talk about some of their experiences or trust that, or maybe have boundaries or whatever the case may be. So I won't make this a me episode, but I do just want to start off by saying like I really respect this topic, care about this topic for both for personally and professionally.
Yeah. And I just want to tag on to that and just pointing out that trauma isn't just individual, it's relational. And it
And that kind of
impacts,
kicks us into some things I want to talk about. I love that. You're so right,
yeah,
Tiffany.
reading your mind.
We know we always record this live, so if any of you guys think that we just sync my bad jokes to this, those are just creative freedoms that I enact and Tiffany puts up with. No, but I think if it's okay, Tiffany, I'd love to talk a little bit about understanding the impact of trauma. I know you have our neuroscience expertise there, ready to go with a lot of different things, but thought maybe we could talk about just the nervous system and attachment patterns and just kind of what that look at. Now, if that I don't want to steal your thunder because legitimately, if any of you guys have listened to an episode before, you know that's Tiffany's expertise, and
My bread and butter.
I like to Google it and give it to my clients. I don't know if I'm the one that's going to have it memorized, but Tiffany, I'm really going to turn it to you because I love just like learning from you in these conversations.
Yeah, so trauma affects the nervous system, which essentially changes how someone perceives safety, trust, and connection, which are three big important things in relationship. And this often disrupts attachment styles, which we covered in a previous episode. I have no clue how many episodes ago.
Yeah, no, you're right though.
um, but ultimately, the amygdala becomes hyperactive, the prefrontal cortex may become underactive, and this creates exaggerated fear responses, even in safe situations, that can be hard to bounce back from and find in relationships, especially sometimes when people aren't aware that their nervous system is, protecting them in that way. Um, so I guess a good way to think about it is someone when they experience trauma, it's not just an emotional scar. It literally is reshaping the brain and body's way of interpreting safety, connection, and intimacy. And understanding this can help partners, friends, and families approach survivors with greater empathy and patience and understanding of like what is happening on like a biological level. So at the base, trauma activates the amygdala. That's your brain's alarm system. It makes it hypersensitive to threat. This means survivors may perceive danger in a neutral, even in neutral situations, like a raised voice or even like a sudden movement can like trigger someone. Meanwhile, your hippocampus, which helps distinguish past from present, can become less active. This is why some survivors may feel as if the trauma is happening right now, even if they're safe. And then your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your logic and your regulation, often goes offline when it's under stress. And this can sometimes explain why trauma responses are not rational choices, they're more automatic survival reflexes. So survivors may act with flight, fight, freeze, or fawn behaviors in relationships, not because they don't trust their loved ones, but because their nervous system hasn't relearned like what safety is or what safety looks like. This goes a little bit into I think your realm because you work with polyvagal theory, right?
Yeah, no, I that's fantastic, Tiffany. I appreciate you just normalizing it, just talking about like the nervous system response. So yeah, we talk about kind of three different things with like the polyvagal ladder. It's a really great image of just if you Google that, if you're listening or look at a picture after the episode, there's just the polyvagal ladder. And at the top is just maybe the sense of safety. As we move down, would be that place of feeling activated, stress, fight, flight, flee. And then there's the bottom of the ladder, which is that exhaustion. A really quick way of understanding this would be if we were sitting here and we hear an ambulance and a fire truck passing where we're sitting here listening to this or making this. I'd probably stop and be like, oh, that's pretty loud. It's getting closer. Uh, Maybe my nervous system, as it goes away, it drives to where it's supposed to go. My nervous system just kind of resets, like, oh, not a big deal. But maybe if I had had a trauma in an ambulance, I would be like, oh my gosh, like I'm reliving that. I'm noticing this. I'm feeling the energy of what's going on. So that's just a really quick example. If you think about trauma, though, triggers would pretty quickly take us to that activated fight, flight, flee place. And then if we're in that place long enough, we're going to get exhausted. So typically, I don't know about your patients, Tiffany, but my patients who are survivors of trauma working on healing, they are typically in that activated state most of the time. So we try to describe what does it look like to feel safe? What does it look like to feel secure? Very difficult because not much of their time is spent in that part of it. It's usually the exhausted or activated part.
hmm Yeah. And the nervous system it's as you mentioned, is constantly scanning for danger. Sometimes, depending on how you talk to, we'll call this neuroception. Big fancy word, not really important if you
Ooh.
don't want to remember it. But after trauma, this neuroception becomes biased toward detecting threats, even when it's non-existent. Your sympathetic nervous system, your flight, your fight, can become overreactive, leading to that irritability, hypervigilance, and anxiety in relationships. Your dorsal vagal system, your shutdown, your freeze response, may trigger withdrawal, numbness, or dissociation in relationship. And so a safe connection activates the ventral vagal system, which calms the body and allows for intimacy, play, and trust to develop.
What would I be without you, Tiffany? All the science. Keep going. Keep going.
All right, all day. Just want me to rattle it off.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm your hype guy. I'm just like, yeah, girl, like whatever
Ugh,
you need. You just keep going.
yeah. So partners and families can act as co-regulators. A calm voice, gentle presence, or predictable routine can help shift survivors' nervous system back into safety. Another thing to remember is trauma memories are often stored in sensory and emotional system. They're not just narratives. So a smell, tone of voice, facial expression, all of those things can trigger the same body state as the original trauma. The insula and anterior cingulate cortex, again, big words, don't really have to remember them. They're essentially regions that are linked to emotional awareness in your brain, and they can become hyperactive and intensifying sensations of fear and shame.
Wow.
Um, our oxytocin, cortisol are two big chemicals that love to sometimes not work right for us. Trauma
Ooh.
increases baseline levels of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which can keep the body on high alert. Safe relationships can release oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, which reduces cortisol, lowers heart rate, and can help foster feelings of trust. Research actually shows that physical affection and supportive relationships can reduce physiological stress responses by up to 50%. And
Wow.
finally, neuroplasticity. Your brain is capable of rewiring itself through consistent safe experiences, therapy, and supportive relationship. Neuroplasticity allows survivors to gradually retrain their amygdala to be less reactive, strengthen the prefrontal cortex's regulation, and form new patterns of connections. This is why healing relationships matter so much. They provide the repeated safe interactions that literally help reshape your brain towards safety and trust. The biggest kind of blip, actually, one of the biggest blips to kind of take away is loved ones don't have to fix, air quotes here, the trauma, but just showing up consistently and being a safe space, you can become a part of the survivor's brain rewiring process, sometimes without even knowing you're aware of doing it. But ultimately, trauma doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean your brain is broken. It just means your brain adapted to survive. And with safe relationships, compassions, and repeated positive experiences, those brain systems can adapt again towards safety, connection, and resilience.
Can't get better than that, folks. There is no topping that. Thank you, Tiffany, for that really well researched and prepared piece on nervous systems and just like the role our families can play. And I would just throw out our animals, like we co-regulate with fellow mammals. So, I mean, lots of my trauma sessions, my clients have their cats or dogs if they're cooperating. At the time of this recording, one of my dogs is not with me because they were not helping me regulate in any way, but I love them. Sorry, Ellie. You get a shout out. We can give shout outs to our pets in this. Just a few. Just a few. So one thing, just maybe moving to the next piece, I thought maybe Tiffany, we could talk about what healthy relationships maybe look like after an exposure to traumatic experiences. So um, it may just seem very basic, but sometimes we think about what is the definition of trauma, and like I would like to maybe just stress that a very general definition would be a deeply distressing or overwhelming experience that can have a significant and lasting impact on a person's emotional, physical, and social well-being that can be caused by physical events, witnessing or learning about traumatic events, or repeated exposure to stressful or dangerous situations. So if you see that, there's no list of, hey, this is what everything, it can be really, anything can be traumatic in some sense, depending on what the situation is or what it means to the person. So, Tiffany and I are not here to be the trauma police and be like, okay, this is what is trauma, this is what's not. If it's traumatic to you, it's traumatic to you. And like really acknowledging that, I think is really important. So, one thing to just kind of think about is that impact of having safety disrupted. Like feeling like your safety's been maybe taken from you or that you're not able to create that safety. Like that's a big challenge. And so having that connection with other people is very helpful. Sometimes it can be very challenging. Those fight or flight response can be not the most helpful.
Yeah,
Anything
sometimes
you would
they
add?
can. Oh, I was just gonna say, sometimes those responses can put us in places that leave us feeling angry at ourselves or misunderstood or embarrassed or shameful, or like maybe we're too much to handle.
And trust and consistency, I think, is another piece that's really important. That saying what you mean, being there. I would just maybe stress that trust and consistency and like respect of someone's boundaries. I've worked with many clients where it wasn't anything malicious, but one time of maybe not understanding that person's boundary and pushing like that really could overwhelm them, trigger them, and put them in an unsafe position. And so that is not something I think many people intend to do, but just really being consistent and creating that. I think with that consistency, people are able to build some healthy and different levels of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
also recommend respecting people's boundaries. I'm going to give a silly example of a boundary for just a second. That's not maybe one that would be real. Like my boundary is you have to go buy me Taco Bell every 4 hours. Like, that's not a boundary. That's probably codependency or manipulation. We are not sponsored by Taco Bell. I'm very open to that. And also, that's probably not the healthiest thing for me to eat every 4 hours. So when I
I was
say
gonna say
boundaries, I
that's a
mean,
lot of Taco Bell.
one quesadilla every 4 hours, Tiffany, is that going to kill me? Maybe, maybe. Um, that's not happening in case my family physician somehow gets this episode. But if it was, I'm not going to talk about it. But
I
we
feel
just
like
want
they
to
would know.
really, they would know. You're right. There's other ways that would show up for them other than listening to the podcast. But I'm going to just plug the podcast next time. You should listen to this. There's some info in here for you because they have so much free time. But we just want to respect each other's boundaries. So if someone says a boundary like, hey, I don't want you to come approach me from behind ever. Don't ever come to me from behind. Don't talk to me loudly. Don't use that tone, this word. That, is what being trauma informed is. We don't get to pick what those boundaries are. And we want to just have support and interdependence so that, hey, I'm going to help you if you're having this episode. I'm going to help you if there's this challenge, but not codependence, which would be unhealthy and dysfunctional. Um, it is not always rainbows. I love Disney movies. I won't say which ones because inevitably somebody's going to be like, no, that's the wrong one to like. Uh, but if you think of that plot, things are good, things are challenging, things are great. There's that is not what healing looks like from trauma. Um, that can be a lot of different directions. It's very messy. One thing I just want to speak to fellow survivors is your healing, you don't really get to pick what that looks like. You can do the work, you can try to put yourself in opportunities, but it looks different for everyone. And I think one of my soapboxes is social media is a beautiful thing. And also, we kind of tend to glorify certain types of responses to trauma. Like we almost glorify, look how horrible that person had it, and look how strong they are. Look how it barely impacted them. Look at what their depression does. It makes them art. Look at their anxiety that gets their it's and we don't really like highlight the whole spectrum of symptoms. And like that's just one sliver. So I just want to encourage people like not everyone, we talk about stigma, not everybody's going to go out there and talk about, oh yeah, like I had this traumatic episode or I had this flare up, but I can't go. And like, some of that's just protection and nobody owes anybody a certain story, but that's very difficult.
Yeah. I think to kind of just backplug what you're saying is survivors might need space, slower pacing, or limits on physical intimacy or social contact as a boundary. That's not meant as rejection. Loved ones can sometimes view boundaries as rejection, but they're actually a step towards safety. Um, Statistics actually show that survivors who report having autonomy and choice in relationships experience higher recovery outcomes and lower depressions than those that don't. So I want to just encourage people to think about boundaries aren't walls, they're pathways your people are creating to help bring back a safe connection.
Mm-mm-mm. I love it. And we are therapists doing this podcast. We're not a therapy podcast per se, but sometimes, there are situations where it gets a little overwhelming. Like maybe you're not able to regulate your partner, or maybe regulate with them, or have productive conversations. And like, couples therapy is not a forever thing. It's a come in for seasons, do the work, learn, but there should be no shame around that either. So I would say probably important to make sure if you are in that situation, you're noticing flare-ups and wounds from trauma, I would highly recommend maybe doing that self-work first before doing couples, just because it will tend to show up in the couples work. And so that can be challenging if it's like the space is for both of you and your relationship, and then you're wanting to work on some stuff because it's very natural to want to do. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to kind of get into, Tiffany, just like really like to break the ice on this topic. And I'm curious how we'll maybe follow up on some of this, but really, like, if anyone's listening and has some examples, I mean, I'd love, we're not going to share them or anything, don't feel like, but we would love to hear like what you're noticing. What has your recovery been like? And if you have anything we could maybe follow up on, it's always, I think, nice to hear what other people's experiences have been.
Yeah. And maybe I'll have to do a, hot seat episode to dive deeper into uh your couple's work in practicing trauma informed communication within like relationships.
Ooh, like future episodes, or you want me to like start going now?
I'll let you make that decision.
I feel like I want to give people more than a random go, but I do. I mean, it is something I am passionate about. It's something I do. I think it may be a good standalone follow up of like maybe a couples therapist perspective on
Mhm.
this. I think we're speaking kind of generally, but just very helpful. But yeah, I'd love to talk about. I think the quick blurb would just be um, doing the self work first, recognizing yourself, recognizing your own limitations. I'm a therapist and also I'm a human being. And so sometimes the human being in me is what's getting triggered and activated, not the therapist, right? Because that's just real life. And so I also have limits. My bandwidth is not unlimited. So just recognizing the limits, it's not a weakness. It's just recognition of like, hey, there's only so much energy, so much time.
Mhm. Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do an extra soapbox episode of like how hard it is sometimes to turn off the human brain.
Ooh, that's real. We've got lots of good ideas today, Tiffany.
You can tell our coffee has kicked in.
We are cooking today.
All right. One quick. Mm, okay. Nah, I'll skip that one. Last two talking points. If you love someone healing from trauma, what would you tell them that they can do to help make them feel more safe in a relationship or friendship with them?
Just maybe privately ask them like how they can show support or what kind of support would they like. What support would the person like to receive? Sometimes we like disempower people, and that's not helpful. Treating them like babies or treating them like they can't handle anything like that is the opposite of trauma-informed care. So just really trying to show support in the way you can, and just maybe like winding in, like I can be a loud cup of coffee sometimes. So I just, if I'm in a situation where I'm not sure how to go, I just try to wind myself in. And there's some privilege in that, but also just to try to just not, I don't want to overwhelm people. I want to be inclusive for those I can.
Yeah. And then if you're the survivor, what is one boundary or request I can voice to help my loved ones support me better? And you can answer this one professionally or personally if you choose.
What is one? I love that we always record this slide. What is one request? Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, what is one boundary or request I can voice to help my loved ones support me better?
Oh, okay. Um, okay, professional answer is like I do think people get overwhelmed and they need to take space. So I think maybe like I think of some of my patients, they literally just need to go walk outside. Like I picture Thanksgiving, it's really overwhelming. They're very triggered. They just need to go outside. It's usually cold because we're in the Midwest. They just need to go take a lap. They're not in crisis. They just need to go walk. And so sometimes it looks like, hey, don't follow me, don't stop me. Like I think that people are like, no, 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 stay, stay, stay. Like they think the stay, telling them to stay and keeping them in the room is helpful. Like it's not helpful. Like if someone is a grown adult and is not in an unsafe identified position, like let them get that space. Like that would be what I would maybe communicate if that's you and that's like, hey, I need that space. This is what I'm doing. I'm not unsafe. Um, I think it's very similar personally. Like I just have told people like when I need to go. Like sometimes I just need to step away because what the situation is not warranted. Like, I can think of a personal event here recently. Someone said something completely playful, and it was not offensive at all. But the way it struck me, I was just like, I don't know how to explain it other than like I was just ready to like run through a wall and like go full for whatever that trigger was for me. And I just had to step away. And then, like, some of my family were like, hey, what's going on? I was like, hey, I just need some space. I just need to reset. I will circle back if I can, kind of thing. But that is, even though that's inconvenient, I will just share that personally, that is a heck of a lot better than Eric losing his crap and doing all this and that kind of thing. So that's what I have learned in my healing journey. I'd love to say every time I catch that and I'm really good like that. It's not every time, but it's more often than not because of the support and healing I've received.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing those things with me and our listeners.
Yeah, no, that's what helped me. I mean, Terry Crews spoke about his experiences of trauma, and it really, I just remember this is crazy, but I was like, oh my gosh, like there's a man talking about those traumatic experiences, and he's a very tough guy. He's a really guy I respect. And so it's like, hey, that's cool, and we've even had people on the podcast that have talked, like my sister and Chris Perry talked a lot. I'm excited. I love that episode. I gonna replay that one a lot. But we've had people come on and talk about their experiences, and I just think that hits different to me than not like, I mean, Tiffany, your science is awesome. I was like, I want to be real. I don't want to like, I think that speaks a little differently sometime of like, hey, this is real. This isn't recording. And I think that speaks to why we're here is we care deeply about these topics.
Yeah, science proves it's a thing. Well, unless you're not a science believer, but that's a whole nother book on a shelf. We're not even
But
gonna
this
pull
isn't the
that one
right
off.
space. If you're here and don't believe in science, this is the right space for you.
You might want to close your ears if you're not a science
Yeah,
believer.
you've gone down the wrong algorithm, wrong rabbit hole, and you've gone too far. You need to turn around.
Ugh. Any last minute additions for us?
No, I appreciate everybody listening, and I hope I've not overshared in any way. It's not, I will just maybe throw a disclaimer that my experiences of healing and challenges is not going to be what everyone's is, but I do like to be um, real and not try to come from a that surgical lens. Sometimes I want to be like, hey, this is what's going on. And I love the science background you've given us today, Tiffany. Like that is also very helpful.
Yeah, and I just want to give a quick little blurb and remind everyone that trauma reshapes the brain and the body, but it does not erase a
Mm,
person's capacity for connection, safety, and love. Healing in relationships isn't about the grand gesture or instant fixes. It's about the small, steady acts of consistency, compassion, and respect for boundaries. Loved ones can play a profound role in recovery simply by being a safe presence, listening without judgment, and honoring the survivor's pace. At the same time, survivors can reclaim their power by voicing needs, setting boundaries, and allowing others to walk alongside them. The science reminds us that the brain is plastic, it can rewire. Relationships are the soil where this rewiring happens. With patience, education, and mutual care, families, friends, and partners can not only support recovery, but also grow stronger and deeper bonds in the process. That being said, healing is never a solo journey. Ask yourself question slash challenge for the listeners today. What's one way I can show up as a safe, steady ground for myself and or for someone that I love?
love that. Thanks for being here with us today, guys.
Yeah, until next time.